Let's calculate interim interest. Interim interest. What do we know about interim interest? Interim interest is a buyer fee. The seller has nothing to do with interim interest. It's a debit to the buyer. Why is that? Because what's happening here is this. We have the month of closing here in the beginning. Say we're going to close on October 23rd. So when we close on October 23rd, that new buyer gets to pay for the day of closing through the end of the month. What happens on November 1st? Nothing. There's no payment due on November 1st. Listen to me, there's no payment due on November 1st when it's a house that you own. Because when you pay a mortgage payment, you pay in arrears, meaning you pay after you live there. That is the opposite of rent. With a mortgage, you're paying in arrears. Therefore, once you're finished with the month of closing, in this case October, your next and your very first real full payment is not going to be until December 1st. And when you pay that payment on December 1st, it's because you had already lived there in November. You get to pay after you stay when you own it. Different from rent. But that still means that on closing, we need to settle up for the month of closing. So the new lender for this borrower wants to make sure that they get paid the interest on these days left in the month of closing. So how do we calculate those days? We take 30 days in the month. We subtract 23 from them. That leaves us with 7 days. But that does not include the day of closing. We need to get that day of closing in there. Because with interim interest, that new lender says, thank you, welcome to the family, Mr. New Borrower. We want you to pay us for the day of closing too. So it's 8 days. 8 days in this case. So again, number of days in the month for you guys, every month has 30 days. Subtract 23 because it's the 23rd of the month. That gives us the days left in the month. After closing day, we need to add that closing day back in. So 8 days is the number we're looking for the buyer to pay interim interest. Next question is, how much per day? So step 1, number of days. Step 2, dollars of interest per day. How do we do that? The test will give you that information. They'll tell you the loan amount, and you've got to use that and some other information to figure out the monthly interest. Actually, the daily interest, sorry. So how do we calculate daily interest using loan amount? Okay, so loan amount is $303,000. And the interest rate is a 4% rate. What's the annual interest for a loan amount of $303,000 at a 4% rate? Remember from way back in the day in our time together? If you are joining me and you are a past student of mine. So let's look at this. Let's get some room. We'll make some room. Annual interest. Good old AN interest is up top. The rate is on the bottom. The rate is always on the bottom. No matter what kind of math problem it is, the rate is one of those bottom numbers. And then the loan amount. K means 1,000. So loan amount times interest rate equals the number up top for annual interest. What is $300,000 times 4%? $303,000 times 4% is $12,120 per year. which means we divide it by 360 to get the per day. So what's $12,120 divided by 360? It is $33.67 per day. That's how much that interest is. So now we've got our 8 days. We've got our $33.67 per day. Let's take $33.67, multiply it by 8. I'm just going to leave that number in the calculator. That gives us somewhere around $269. $269. I'm just going to 269. $269. Let me write it over here. $269 is a debit to the buyer. Remember, the buyer has to pay it because it's their interest for the remainder of the month, of their first month of owning it. And that is interim interest.